Very good. It's 1:30, so we'll begin the Liquor Control Board meeting for today. We have a few items on the agenda. Number one is to approve the minutes of the August 16th, 2023 regular meeting. We have that in front of us, and everyone should have gotten that ahead of time if there are any changes or corrections. Otherwise, we'll accept a motion. And Tatiana is not able to join us today. She wasn't feeling well, so she will not be here today. Do we have a motion?
So move.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? We have a motion and a second. Any other changes or corrections? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Review liquor applications. 2A, Chubb's Pub and Package Place Incorporated, doing business as Chubb's Pub, located at 421 University Avenue North, for a Class AB alcoholic beverage license transfer. Steve.
Good afternoon, Commissioner and board members. So the Chubb's Pub is a Class AB liquor license, though it's like the granddaddy, the full-on liquor license, right? It's an on and off-sale license, which we've capped and we do not issue any more of. So after many years, 40 plus years in the liquor business, Mark Doyle has decided that it's time to pass the reins here. And so we've gone through the background check with the applicant here. And it is coming with a recommendation of approval from the police department. Couple of minor items from, the applicant's youth, I guess you'd say, that showed up in the background check from 1998 and 2001.
Do we have any comments or questions? And I don't know if the police want to make any comments about the background, but if not, unless there's any questions. Otherwise, I just want to say congratulations to Mark. I've known him for a long time, and obviously they've been a good citizens of Fargo and a good business to have. So thank you very much for all you've done, obviously, for our town, and congratulations, and obviously good luck to your new ownership. Any other comments or questions? Go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, I'd like to take an opportunity, a little self-indulgent, to second that. Mark's a good friend of mine and longtime golf opponent and stuff. But this is an example of the really nice thing about the liquor business in our town. These family-held businesses supported several family members for Mark and his sister, started by his dad, so it's a second-generation business. Extremely professionally run, did a lot for the city through charities, and probably the most amazing thing is a lot of the employees there that went through over the 40 or 35 years that I've known the business and known Mark, went on to really prosperous people. There's a lot of business people in this town that spent time working at Chubb's in their college days, et cetera. So it is truly something special, as many of the local bars that are family owned are, and I think that they're jewels of Fargo and much appreciated. So congratulations, Mark and his sister, and also congratulations to Wade, who's been working there for quite a while and has been sternly mentored by Mark, which will guarantee the culture of that fine place continues. So thanks for letting me indulge myself here a little bit.
Very good. And with that, are you willing to make the motion?
A motion approved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any other comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. 2B, the 1889 LLC, doing business as the 1889, located at 602 Main Avenue, for a Class W alcoholic beverage license. Steve.
Thank you, Commissioner. So the Class W is a wine-only liquor license. It does allow a bar, and it does not require any food sales. This location is the old Wimmers building, and they have a new concept in mind, where it's like you're going to prepare your own food, or I think they provide the food, but you prepare it yourself. And so then to have the wine license to go along with that to do the food pairing. And the reason that a Class G wine license didn't work is because they're not selling the food. So we had a discussion at health about, you know, which license would be the right classification. And since they're not selling the food, they needed to go with the more expensive Class W license. So with that, we've done the background check. There were no issues for either of the applicants, and it is coming to you with a recommendation of approval from the chief.
Steve, can I ask how much is that license?
So the wine license, the W license is $7,500 with an annual fee of $750.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Otherwise, if we're ready for a motion, if someone's willing to make it,
I'll make the motion.
we have a motion. Do we have a second?
A second.
Any other comments or questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. 2C, the 4050 Lounge LLC, doing business as the 4050 Lounge, to be located at 2551 45th Street South, Suite 129, for a Class CW alcoholic beverage license. Steve?
So again, this is the C, and then we're pairing it with the W, and we're pairing it with the C. So it's beer and wine. It does allow a physical bar, and it does not require the food sales. So this, the owner, Nick Tunheim, has Skill Cuts barbershops, and so this is going to be like an upscale barbershop where you come in, and instead of just running in and running out for a haircut, you spend some more time there and relax, learn to enjoy life a little bit and relax. And again, the CW is the appropriate license for them because then we're not pushing them into a restaurant type situation where they have to sell food and that type of thing. Gone through the background check, there were no issues on there, nothing of significance, and it does come with a recommendation of approval from the police chief.
So can I ask you, Steve, so they gave us like a floor plan, which is good. So does that happen on pretty much all the licenses or just some?
No, the floor plan is required on all licenses. I thought on this one that it was important for you to see how they were setting up the lounge.
Yep.
If you want to, I can start including that floor plan, but on this one, because it's a little different concept, something new to Fargo, I thought that it was important to have that floor plan in there.
No. So you don't have to do it for all of them, but I do appreciate that. And I do think it is a good thing. And I think that's good for everybody to know that if we want to, we can have access to it, but for all licenses, they have to give us an example of what they're
Yes.
planning on building.
Yep.
Okay.
Exactly.
That's awesome. Any other, go
Yeah,
ahead.
Steve, another quick question. I don't know if it sounds from the description, they just serve the beer and wine with the haircut, price the haircut, or I noticed they also have a back bar or bar island. They also sell or just serve?
Well, yeah, so they're going to sell and have a lounge area on that back end. And that way, the front end is not a part of the licensed premise, so a minor could come in and get a haircut, right? But the minor can't go into the back area where the alcohol is served.
Can I ask a follow-up question? So then you don't have to get a haircut to go and have a drink. Is that what you're saying?
That's correct. You can just come in, if you're meeting somebody there or something like that, you can come in and just relax and lounge.
Okay. Thank you. Bob, do you have a
Oh,
question?
yeah, I have a question. Steve, it's hard for me to tell. It doesn't look like there's much. How many square feet is there? Is there really only 5 seats in the place?
I might have to call on the applicant to answer some of these questions. The way that they have that drawn up, they have only 5 chairs in the lounge area.
There's no tables or anything?
Nope, it doesn't look like it.
So can I ask a follow-up to that, Bob, if you don't mind? So then they can't have alcohol in the barbershop area. Is that correct?
That's correct. It's that area was excluded from the licensed premise so that they could allow minors to come into the barbershop.
Okay.
Well, I've got a comment. I mean, I just have an issue with these new combined licenses where it's not, something that's because it's served with food or some type of food tasting venue or whatever. That makes sense to me. This seems to me like an inexpensive way into the bar business, and that I don't think is right. I don't think that's what C and W licenses should be. If it is truly just going to be a lounge and compete with the other lounges in town that are paying, whether they're FA or full licenses, paying $100,000 plus for licenses. And I see we've got another one coming up. So I know we've been talking about expanding the number of these, Steve, and that it would help you. And so I understand that. And everybody wants to talk about new concepts, but I've also seen how we have this license creep is the next thing. He wants to expand further the other way and have room for 50 people. You know, would he be able to do that without us approving that, for example?
No, anything like that, it would have to come for your approval. Anytime somebody changes license premise, it needs to be approved by the Attorney General's office, the floor diagram, and we also have them copy that with us. So you would see something like that and would be able to, you know, weigh in on further expansion.
And I guess my last question would be, is there a full-time bartender or waitress manning this place? For
So-
5 seats, it seems kind of,
It could be somebody that is server trained and is doing the haircut and that type of thing, and then goes back and serves I don't think that they would have to have somebody full time. There's Nick, maybe he can answer some of those questions.
If you don't mind just introducing yourself, your name and address, we'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Nick Thunheim. My home address, Moorhead. As Steve said, I'm involved in Skill Cuts. We have a college, as well as the barber shop. So this would be a new business, as we mentioned. But yes, we would have a full-time person who would staff the lounge. You indicated 5 seats. That's just on the plan. I think there's actually 7 around the bar area. And then there's a couple tables that are small tables and 2 chairs along the hallway. So it is combined with our shop. It is partitioned, which is also a part of the barber board regulations. And so our concept is people will be able to come in before and after their haircut for a glass of beer or wine. We currently do this on the Skill Cut side. We have a lot of corporate events come in. Bell Bank often brings in their people from Arizona. They come to the shop all together and have kind of a gathering. So that would take place over in this new space. Any other questions?
No,
Yeah,
that's great. I appreciate it. Go ahead, Bob.
you say there's a partition. It's not a wall. What is a partition?
The state code requires, the barber code requires that there's a significant partition of ceiling height. And so we actually reached out with the barber board to the Attorney General to have them define that for us. We wanted to make sure it doesn't need to be a wall, and we have an open ceiling concept. Does it have to go all the way to the ceiling, or what is that? So the Attorney General came back and said what we had in the plans, which is a significant partition, which is 4x4 posts that are mounted to the ground, mounted to the drop ceiling, and then there's wood, 1x8 wood strips that go across that. We do not have to have a door for them because there is a restroom on the other side. So it is not a full wall, but you definitely can't walk through it. There's about 1.5-inch gaps between the wood all the way to the top.
Okay, one last question. As a professional industry, can you give me an idea? Do you have any idea like how many barbershops and hairdressers there are in Fargo?
Oh gosh, I don't know the exact number, but there's a significant amount of barbershops and salons. I'm more familiar with the barbershop. I'm not a barber myself. I'm just in the mix to help with the ownership piece of it and the management side of it. I'm actually a funeral director, so totally different world. But I would say, gosh, there's probably at least a dozen barbershops around town. We are by far the largest. We consider Skill Cuts what we call high volume. We have a lot of traffic. We're looking to do something that's more high-end service and not so much traffic.
Is there a similar concept in West Fargo that's ongoing right now?
Steve could probably help with this, but there's Men's Hair Company, which they serve beer with their haircuts. And if my understanding is that's a part of them, you just come in and they'll serve you. You don't have to pay for it. I don't know what kind of license they have. The concept we're after is a little bit like the nail bar, where that you can come in for a relaxing service. We would do more head massage, straight razor shaves, etc., rather than just a haircut in and out type of thing.
I just wanted to add one thing, but you have to have server training. You already know that. I'm sure you do.
Absolutely.
And so you already know all the responsibilities. So when you get a liquor license, you already know all.
Yes, sir. Yep. And that's
Okay.
all a part of our application that's submitted as well.
Anything else to add, Steve?
Well, just the comment on another barbershop that does serve beer. It's on 45th Street. Not exactly sure of the kind of by the Home Depot area, and she has a Class C beer only license. And Nick's correct; she has chosen to just offer it as part. You get your haircut, you get a massage, whatever, and here's a beer, that kind of thing. She doesn't charge for hers, but she paid the $7,500 to be able to have that license. So,
Okay, I don't know anything about mixing beer and haircuts. I think it's an interesting idea, but I can't take my beer to get a haircut, or what's the partition deal?
The partition, the alcohol cannot leave the partition. So we are limiting our traffic to roughly, you can come in an hour before your service or an hour after to go and have a drink, but that drink cannot cross that partition into the barbershop area.
Great. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Any other comments or questions? Otherwise, if we're ready, a motion?
So move.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further comments or questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign.
No.
Motion carries. And we're on to 2D, Uncork Lounge LLC, doing business as Uncork Lounge to be located at 2820 Uptown Way for a Class C alcoholic beverage license. Steve?
okay, if it says C, it's incorrect. It should be a W.
W.
It should be a wine only. Sorry
All right.
about that. So again, this is very similar to the C. It's a wine bar. There's no food requirement. The wine bar is allowed to have a physical bar in there. And talking to Jessica, the applicant, her intention is to have a place where people can sit and lounge and discuss and have conversations and not have to compete with, loud booming music and that type of thing. And so, she's going to have a very high end, very classy kind of an establishment. That's what her plans are. Gone through the background check. There were no issues that came up there. And it comes to you with a recommendation of approval from the police chief.
Any comments or questions? Otherwise, if we're ready, do we have a motion?
I guess pardon me, Commissioner, I have a quick question. Is this attached to any other type of business? Is it going to be a standalone?
Standalone.
Okay. All right. I mean, going back many years, I think one of the, compared to the last applicant, one of the things that was always looked for is if somebody's going to be in beverage alcohol business, that is their main business. That is what their focus is, that doesn't become a sideline or a secondary thing. So that's one of the reasons that I was against the last thing. So I'll make the motion to approve this.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any other comments or questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And now we're on to 2E, Demi and Company LLC, doing business as Soho 23 to be located at 1450 25th Street South for a Class GH alcoholic beverage license. Steve?
So this is, the GH is the beer and wine, but it does require the food sales. And so there's no bar allowed. The alcohol service has to be at a table or a booth. And so Jen, the applicant, is planning a restaurant. I was looking for the restaurant concept, but I don't see it right offhand. So anyway, let's see here. No, I'm still not seeing it. I'm sorry. So there was one thing, bankruptcy discharged in 2015, and another bankruptcy in 2009. Other than that, no other issues on the background check. does come with a recommendation of approval from the police chief.
So Steve, can I ask, obviously we've had issues in the past where close to 50-50. And so did you talk to them about the food review and how they have to make sure they're above that number so the owners are aware of that and
Yeah.
the standards and how we monitor that?
Yep, absolutely. This location, she's going into the old Himalayan Yak on 25th Street. And so it's set up to be a restaurant. She's going to operate a restaurant. I'm assuming some kind of an Asian theme kind of thing. Yeah, I have that conversation. In fact, we've got one of the next applicants where she is applying for an FA, and I've had that conversation with her numerous times. So
And the same thing, they have to go through server training and check IDs and all that, so they're all aware. So if you don't mind me asking, Steve, first of all, I want to thank you for what you do, but you meet with these people usually more than once, talking about their prospective license, correct? And then you also talk about some of these issues, correct?
we try to meet with them to talk about business concept to make sure we get them in the right license classification for their business concept.
Right.
And so yeah, we meet with them multiple times. It all depends on the applicant. Sometimes, they're very self-sufficient. Maybe they've had licenses before and they know how to fill out the application and there are no questions. We have them come in sometimes where, I didn't have any idea that they were going to be applying, but most of the time, the applicants come to the office and start talking to us about their business concept, and so that's how we move our way through that license classification.
Great, thank you. I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but
No.
I just wanted the public to be aware of, you do a lot behind the scenes before they get here. And the other question I had for you is, so obviously we know that they have to go through server training. So do they have to sign anything that they're aware of that, or do they? Is it just part of the acquiring the license?
No, part of the application has a list of things that they're
Yep.
to read and initial that they understand it. And so all of those things that you've been talking about, server training, carding, and doing all that kind of stuff is all included on there. So we have and then at the end of the application, we have them sign an affidavit that says everything in the application is truthful. So, yeah.
That's great. Thank you very much, Steve. Any other comments or questions? Otherwise, if we're ready, a motion?
So move.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second?
Motion and a second. Any further comments or questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Now 2F, El Agave Mexican Restaurant LLC, doing business as El Agave Mexican Restaurant, located at 2581 45th Street South, for a Class FA alcoholic beverage license. Steve.
Thank you, Commissioner. So the FA is the full alcohol with a bar, but it's has to be in a restaurant where the food sales exceed the alcohol sales. The location of this is the famous Dave's building. And so when we completed the background check, there were a couple of issues in there. There was he failed a compliance check in 2002 and then has a DUI in Georgia in 2017. And I think I'm going to defer now to either the police or to Nancy. And we included the guidelines to liquor issuance in the packet this time, just so that you would have them there. And so this is coming with a recommendation of denial from the police chief. But I think either Nancy or Chris can explain a little bit better than I can.
Good afternoon. Captain Chris Helmick appearing on behalf of the Parkland Police Department. So just to address this, during the background investigation, we did find a conviction from 2022 for Mr. Perez for serving alcohol to a minor that occurred as part of a compliance check that the police department performed. And because of that conviction in 2022, through the city prosecutor, the chief is recommending that we deny the application.
So, officer, I guess my question is, obviously, that's a serious violation and things like that, but is that enough to, for the whole business? Is there some way we could not allow him to participate, or are there any other solutions, or is that not a possibility? or maybe that's for Steve, because I guess when I look at, all the rest of the background check was clear. But the other thing is this a policy that the city has that we have to follow? I guess that's my question, and maybe that's for Nancy Morris too. Nancy, you look like you're ready to talk before Steve is, so.
Typically,
Nancy.
I'm pulling it closer. Yes, so before you do have the guidelines that were adopted by City Commission, the resolution establishing the license application qualifications. And this actually brought to light a potential discrepancy in those guidelines. If you look at 8B, it's a conviction of an offense involving the manufacture, sale, distribution, or possession of alcoholic beverages. Obviously, this is a conviction regarding the distribution of alcoholic beverages. If that happened in the last 5 years, that would be the reason for recommendation for denial. Then also you have a potential conflict in 9B that 9C that says sale or delivery of alcohol to a minor. That would then preclude the license or would be presented to you for consideration if there were 2 or more convictions within the previous 2 years. It does appear that the DUI was in 2017, so would have been outside of that 5-year period under Section 8, and outside the 5-year period in Section 9. So I do think that this is presented to you for your discretion as to whether or not to allow that licensee to continue on the application in that manner.
Nancy, are you saying that the service to the minor was a violation of 8B, the distribution of an alcoholic beverage?
It is not as specific, but yes,
Okay.
obviously the sale to a minor would be a violation of the sale or distribution of alcoholic beverages. That would be a 5-year charge. So again, it appears in 2 sections, one's 2 years, one's 5 years. So I think under the circumstances, it would be to your discretion under this. And the guidelines are simply guidelines as well. It is your discretion.
So can I ask a hypothetical? So we could continue this, and then they could change and not, if he was not involved in the application, then it would have been a different situation. Is that correct? Or would you say that's not? Do you get what I'm saying? Because it's one of the individuals has these issues. If he was not on the liquor license, then it would be different. And I don't know. Maybe I should.
But I think, Commissioner, in this case, I know we've done that in the past where we've had one of the minor parties or something and said, you know what, if you remove him, we'll pass the liquor license. In this case, I don't think that's appropriate, being that he is planning on owning and operating the business. So to have him not on the license that he's owning and operating, I don't think would be appropriate. I think that the important part of summarizing what I'm hearing Nancy say is that a couple of things. One, in 9C, there's only one service to a minor in 2 years, not 2 service to a minor in 2 years. And secondly, that these are guidelines. It's not a hard and fast rule. I remember Chief Todd wanted to have something that he could fall back on, and rather than just having like a gut feeling on whether or not to issue a license.
If there's any other, go ahead, Bob.
Steve, was this a compliance check or was this,
Yes, it was a compliance check, and actually, I think it was one of those cases where they were busy in the restaurant because he's working at Plaza Azteca, I believe.
Correct.
And they were busy in the restaurant, and he said, "Well, I'll get that drink for you and bring it up to the table." So it wasn't even his table; it was somebody else's table. So it's just one of those. I guess I'd call it an unfortunate situation.
I think there's a difference between a compliance check and if an officer's doing a walkthrough and finds there's minors drinking in the bar. So I would give some consideration to that as our advising board here. I don't think moving this forward to the next meeting or something is a bad idea, Commissioner, just so that we can perhaps give the applicant time to talk about it or et cetera. But I think compliance checks certainly have their place. It certainly motivates the bar owners. But in reality, a crime was potentially not committed because the minor never drank any alcohol. Right?
Well, it's service, not consumption.
I know,
Yeah.
but to me, there's a gray line there. But so anyway, that's my opinion.
Yeah, in my reading of 8B is that we're kind of stretching that, to me, distribution of alcoholic beverages. I'm, buying 12 cases of beer and distributing them to kids. The fact that they're busy and he covered, I think that's a far stretch from the spirit of this law here.
Any other comments or questions? I guess that's up to the board. If you're real, we have several options. We can continue it. We can act on it tonight, this afternoon. Whatever you prefer is fine with me.
And it does go to city commission, so certainly, the city commission could take it up too.
Right.
If we continue it, will the city commission look at it at that time?
No, we have to act on it first before the city commission, and so then it would just move it back a little bit. But I guess we could ask the applicant to come in person, unless maybe they're here today, but maybe they aren't. But
I wasn't able to get a hold of him, so he's not here.
I guess to me, my perspective, I would like to continue it and just to have him come in person, just so we can talk to him, and also then he knows our concerns. To me, that would be the beneficial part of that, but it's up to you, whatever you prefer.
I would agree with that.
Okay, do we have a motion?
Motion to continue.
Okay, motion and a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? So then it's just to reiterate, Steve, what I said. So we'll just put it on the next agenda, and I would like you to invite him to come and just be able to hear his side of the story, and also then he can hear what our perspective is as well. Does that sound good to everybody?
That's fair.
Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And the last one is 2G Summit Nightclub doing business as Cairo Restaurant and Nightclub located at 4554 7th Avenue South for a Class FA alcoholic beverage license transferred from Johnny Carinos. Steve.
Thank you, Commissioner. Yes, so this is a transfer. FA is again, full alcohol in a restaurant. Does allow the bar, and the food sales have to exceed the alcohol sales. And so this applicant, I did have a conversation with her. I was able to reach her, but unfortunately she is out of town today, and so she wasn't able to attend the meeting. And again, I think my personal feeling after personally meeting with her at least 4 times, maybe 6, I think there may have been a communication issue involved with this. But the chief is recommending denial on this one. And so I think I'll let Captain Helmick kind of address the police's concern.
All right, thanks, Steve. So what we found in this investigation was that Ms. Ismail had been convicted of shoplifting. That was not disclosed on the application. When she was questioned by the officer that was doing the investigation, she explained that she allegedly was told by Mr. Sprague that she didn't need to include that or indicate that on her application because it wasn't applicable to the license application. The officer talked to Steve about that, and of course, Steve said that wasn't true. And what's not clear through the investigation was whether it was just a miscommunication, whether it was intentional on her part to try to hide that information or what have you. But that was the conclusion of the investigation, and so based on that, we were recommending to deny the application.
So Steve, I don't know if you have anything more to add, or if the applicant is here, if they want to get up and speak.
No,
but-
I did reach out to her. She was not able to be here. She is out of town. So anytime that an applicant, has something that they disclose to me, I always tell them, disclose everything on the application so that the police department can make their own determination on whether or not it's something that's of concern. And like I said, I'm sure I met with her at least 4 times, and maybe 6. And I think that, my just personal feeling after meeting with her so many times is that she probably just got a little confused as to which way that was weaving. I think this would be another case where continuing it so she could be here to address, address the issues that were brought up. I think that would be appropriate on this one.
Probably one quick question for the police. So the recommendation to deny is based on the fact that under 7, the false statement was made in the application process? Is that what we're basing that on?
Correct.
Okay,
Just
thank
because
you.
that she marked that there had been no convictions.
Yep, thank you.
And I mean, from our experience, the police background check is very thorough, and so you have to disclose everything. And I mean, if anybody talked to any of us, we know they're very thorough, and so anything that you're not truthful about, it's going to be found out. And so it's just disappointing. And I do think it's just the fact of people. You have to be truthful, and if they're not truthful to us, that's what raises a red flag from my perspective. So, but on the other side. They can still. That's why I would support continuing it, just because there might be some misunderstandings that maybe can be clarified. But the other thing is maybe they can do a reapplication. Let me ask you this question: if we denied this, that doesn't preclude her from making another application later. Isn't that correct?
I don't imagine that it would preclude her. This summer we did that with the 5-star application, and we asked them to reapply because there was confusion over what he was supposed to put on the application, if you remember that.
So I'm sorry for putting you on the spot. But what would you prefer us to do? Would you rather us continue it, or would you rather us deny it? 'Cause
Personally, I'd like to just see it continued so that she has the opportunity to be here and address the liquor board.
Okay, well, you're a veteran of this job, Steve, and I appreciate the hard work you do. And so I will abide by what your wishes are. So I don't know if anybody has any, obviously we have lots of options as far as the commission, what you prefer to do, but otherwise, any comments? Go
Probably
ahead.
one last question is, the shoplifting is not considered a crime that is justifies denial? Because if you can get,
It's a non-alcohol related offense.
oh,
and so-
okay, so the felony on 8A is an alcohol-related felony.
Yeah, there's no indication in
Got
the
it.
report that it was a felony, so it would have been a misdemeanor charge.
Any other comments or questions?
I just have one quick comment. I find it interesting that her name is as a nightclub and she wants an FA license. So I think more discussion needs to be had because I don't think,
That was
This applicant knows
relayed heavily that she needs to be operating a restaurant, or
right.
all the investment she's putting into, she would lose, if she doesn't operate as a
We
restaurant.
might be doing her a favor by having her come back in.
Is that a motion to continue?
Yes, it's a motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a
Second.
second? We have a motion, a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And so now we are on to number 3, the Police Department monthly report.
And we didn't get them this month, so I think we'll just move on if you don't mind.
No, that's fine. And thank you for Officer Helmick.
Oh, excuse me.
Oh,
Chris
he's
has
got it.
something. I'm sorry.
Sorry to put you on the spot.
Coming through. All right, so in August, we had 8 liquor establishment forms that were submitted by officers. And nothing of major concern, but I wanted to point out a couple of different things that might catch your attention when you look at the list. First of all, the Southtown Poorhouse had 3 forms submitted. 2 of those incidents were related. There was one terrorizing incident that's currently pending prosecution. That occurred on one date, and then the next day, some associates that were related to that incident came back, and the bar said, "You're not welcome here," kicked them out. The third incident was possibly an intoxicated driver leaving the bar, but that person was never located, so we couldn't substantiate that. We also had 2 incidents from the windbreak. One of those was a DUI that occurred in their parking lot, and that's currently pending prosecution. The second one was a minor scuffle between one of their security staff and a person that was in the parking lot. This person approached the security person who was monitoring the parking lot and asked for a cigarette. From there, the security member noticed that the person was carrying a beer. There was a confrontation to try and take that beer away from them since he was on their property. And a little bit of a scuffle occurred, but nothing serious. There was no charges and no arrest in that particular case. So no indication in any of these situations that the bar did anything to contribute to the incidents, especially in the Southtown Poorhouse. They just simply called us and this happened. We had 2 people that just apparently didn't agree to get along. So Other than that, there really wasn't anything of concern in the 8 reports. So unless there's any other questions, that concludes my report.
Any other questions?
I've got a quick question for the Assistant Chief. And this is something, I don't know if you can answer or give an opinion, but maybe it's a future topic.
Sure.
It seems like we have a rising trend of things happening in parking lots. And I know that in previous conversations with the Windbreak, their security staff sees it as part of their job to go out into the parking lot.
Right.
And I'm wondering if that's smart, if that's, shouldn't parking lot issues be more for the police than for the security staff or?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question because going back, and I'm going to date myself a little bit, but going back several years, we used to have the same issue at the old Broadway. We'd have a lot of issues in their parking lot to the west of the building. And that was one of the conversations that we had with them was, hey, you need to keep an eye on your parking lot too, because your customers are coming in there and some are causing problems, but also for safety reasons. We also ran into very similar issues when Playmakers or the Hub was open. Again, their security were very active and at kind of at our direction that, hey, we need you out there because we can't be there all the time and providing that level of security. So it really kind of depends on the establishment and what kind of business they're drawing. I guess from a patrol perspective, we appreciate them monitoring a little bit more what's happening in the parking lot. I think the question becomes, what do you do when you see something happening? And that kind of depends on what is occurring. Sometimes, security will get too involved when they really should just call us and we can come over and deal with that. Other times they're able to maybe diffuse things that are over before we would even get there. So it really just depends on the establishment, I think, and what kind of business that they're seeing and what kind of security personnel they have working there.
Okay. Thank you.
You bet.
Thank you very much. And if that's all right, we'll move on to, we have other items on the agenda, and it's to request to increase the Class C and Class W licenses. Steve?
Yes, thank you, Commissioner. So last meeting, I came with a request to increase the cap on the C and the W, and I was requested to gather some more information. So it's in your packet. There's a list of who has the C and the W licenses and when they were issued. It looks like it's about 3 a year between 2019, there wasn't anything in 2020. Nobody was starting businesses then, right? So, but about 3 a year, 2019, 2022, 2018, 17 in that area. So at this point, the licenses that are the pending applications that we had 3 today, and we have licenses to cover those. So now it's at this point, if anybody further came through the door, that tool is out of my tool chest now. So anyway, I went back and got the information that you requested, and it's here. And my request stands, but we don't have to act on it today. We can act on it some other time if you'd like.
No, that's great, and I appreciate that, Steve. And so what is the number that you would recommend at this time? If we're averaging about 3 a year, what do you think an appropriate number would be?
Well, why don't we add 3C and 3W and come back if those go in 3, in a year, then come back in a year. I mean, that would be beneficial to me.
I guess that's the question I have for the other members, because I think we had talked about higher numbers and things like that. But I guess to me, I would much rather have kind of a feel for how many are going in, just so we know. Any other comments or questions about that?
I will say too that, so if you did 3C and 3W, that could be 6 businesses potentially.
Right.
Most of the time, as you can see on the list, the people come and they get a C and a W together. So beer and wine together.
Any other comments or questions? And we don't have to act on that today, but I guess if we're ready to, we can do that. So whatever the group.
And again, the motion would be to direct or to request the city commission to direct the attorney to make the ordinance changes. So, but again, if you want to think about it, that's fine. I don't have anybody. I had one call, but they didn't return any more information. So at this point, I don't have anything pending.
But as of right now, if someone did ask for one, we would say there's none available.
There's none available. That's
Okay.
correct.
So go
I'd
ahead.
make a go ahead. Oh,
I would just make the point, I would make the motion, just, I think that to have those additional licenses just to help the growth, I don't see any issue with that. I don't think we're just opening it wide open, but to have a reasonable, I mean, we could always review it in 6 months to see if we want to add more, but just to add those additional ones, I would make that motion.
Okay.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign.
And,
Motion-
excuse me, Commissioner, just for clarification, that's 3, right?
Correct.
Okay,
Yep.
got it.
And next item on the agenda, additional Z and B limited licenses.
And just,
Go ahead, Steve.
excuse me, yeah, just accepting applications till October 27th. Based on the number of calls I've had, I do think that we will get applications for both the B limited and the Z. We may be in a situation where we get multiple applications for one or both of those licenses.
And we do have a process for that if that happens where we get more than one, so that's great.
Yep, we went, brought back to this body and then brought to city commission a resolution that just defined what that process is.
Very good. So that's just an update.
Yep.
And the last one is the de-escalation training. And I
Yeah,
do think this
so-
this applies to kind of what we were talking about with parking lots too. And so I do think that's an issue. And a lot of people attended that last meeting, and it wasn't exactly what we were looking for. And so if we can find something, I do think it's an important additional thing that a lot of the owners of the bars and restaurants would appreciate, and I think it would benefit us as a city. So go ahead, Steve.
I totally agree. Yes, the first de-escalation green dot training, we had only 2 people that attended. We didn't get any feedback from them. The second one, it was well attended, had quite a number of people. All the feedback that I got from that, including from the trainers, was that wasn't the right training.
Right.
And so the trainers reached out and said, you know what, and then I think they had a staff turnover issue too, but they said, you know what, this isn't the right kind of training for the group that you're looking for. So I think our next option then is to go to the North Dakota Safety Council, who we currently have engaged doing our server training for us, and that has gone really well. They do not have like an online de-escalation training. It would be in person. I did get an estimate, a quote on what that would cost. And if we would have to have 100 people committed to do 2 sessions, like one in the morning and one in the afternoon. So 50 people in each session, and the cost would be $25 per attendee. So that's going to cost a little bit more, and I need to figure out a way that we can have a sign-up program. So there's a few things that we have logistically to kind of work out with that one, but we'll continue to reach out to North Dakota Safety Council and see if we can't get something lined up for, it'll probably be 2 or 3 months out now.
I think that'd be great, and I think it would be well attended. And I think and I hope we should work with the police department to make sure that what they're talking about is works well with what they're doing, so they're complementary. And the other thing is the funding of it. I think I know we could fill those both up, and I think it would benefit the city and the bars and restaurants. It would make everything better, and the citizens would make them safer too. So I just, whatever we can do to proceed, but I think, Scott, you were there too, and we had lots of people attend, and so people want
About
to
75.
improve.
Yep. It was about 75 people. It was not a wasted time. It was really good information. They did a great job, but again, not exactly to that audience. So
Right.
So if you don't mind just keeping us updated, and then once we get it more information, then we'll pass it on to all the bars and restaurants, because I think a lot of them would benefit. And it's also not just bars. I mean, there's restaurants. Hey, almost every business has issues at this point, and so I think this might be very popular for lots of people in Fargo.
And it is taught by a law enforcement professional, so I think it will be more geared towards what we're looking for.
But if
we'll
you don't-
continue to work on that. Yep.
But I also want to make sure that we are working with the police department to make sure it's complementary, because I think to make sure that the message is what they're looking for as well, because I think we want to make sure everybody's working together.
Okay.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Any other comments or questions? I apologize for the long meeting today, but lots of good things. And thank you, everybody. We are adjourned. Have a good afternoon. And congratulations to Chubb's Pub. It's a great spot.